Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in. Um, well, I'm just going to talk about some of the things that are going on in my mind lately, which are baffling, and I know that it's going on in a lot of people's minds as well. But I just want to remind you about how magnificent we really are, we as humans. And what's happened is we've been hacked. Um, Somewhere along the line something happened, and I believe this hacking is actually within our own programming. And it also probably is a chemical that it might even be cortisol. Cortisol might be that chemical that gives us the kind of the brutality that we're humans are so capable of, and that humans with grace are so disgusted with. So I think it would be great if we could study these things. But the thing is, we don't pay attention to what is good about us. And our minds have been taken over by thinking we humans are lousy creatures, which I'm not saying that we're not in many instances, but then we're like that for a reason. And I believe these are overlays that have been put over us through the programming. And it takes a lot of time to program a human. It takes generations, but it's easy done now because we've just been so programmed for so many hundreds and possibly even longer years. We've been slaves for really as long as we can look back. And really, when I say we're slaves, there are the people who own slaves, but they too are slaves. They're just in a better layer, a higher layer than the lowest slaves, but they too are slaves. They're slaves to money. They're slaves to control. They're slaves to their base urges, and that's the animal side of human. And I don't know if that was the first phase of human, and we're probably in the second phase of human, and we're going to a third phase of human where I call it meta sapiens. And this is where we unlock a lot of our DNA and we become more equipped. We have more capabilities. In fact, we've got a lot of capabilities right now, and maybe it will unlock just the capabilities that we really do have. But I do think that we will go to another phase where we will unhack this hacking that we've had. I think we've got to find the way to unhack it, because the universe, as we call it, the realm that we're in, um, it's it is learning as it goes along. It's like a Siri, those Siri machines that you have in your house, or any kind of um, I forget what you call the term. It's those language, you know, and automated assistants, and I don't know what they learn language as you use them. They learn to understand you. So that's what the universe is. It's constantly being created, and it's like mechanisms, like the the machine elves that people see when they are on ayahuasca and things like that. It fascinates me what people experience in their trips, shall you say, when they have ayahuasca and DMT and psilocybin mushrooms. And now this world that we live in right now, it's already so um, so deeply into the domination mindset. The domination mindset goes like this: that we have an authority over us, that we are not our own authority. And you can call it anarchy, like a lot of the time. Yeah, and it's just there are nobody can rule over another person, not even a child, and not even an animal can't rule. The idea of ruling is anathema to the empowered human, to the human who is aware of their capacities. And of course, you can't use your capacities if you're not aware of them. So this is interesting for me to be speaking like this, because I normally don't speak to people about this. So I'm a little bit nascent at it. But I hope if I get some feedback from people, I hope that we can make this a more interactive thing, and maybe have some live Facebook recordings and sessions where people can, you know, ask questions, and sometimes even come on with me. But whatever it leads to, and we're leading into something so fantastic right now. We're on the verge of being completely controlled, and also being completely awakened. Now, that you probably think, oh, how can that be? Because so many people are still asleep or not awake. What do we mean when we say that, though? What does it mean to be awake? And this bears asking, because I think our language can get us all tied up in knots, and that's why we have a lot of arguments that we do. It's because we have different definitions of things, because the language is so inadequate for the minds that we're trying to, the thoughts and the ideas that now we're trying to encapsulate. There's no words have been made for them, for this, for what we're going into now, or whatever it is, whichever way it's going to go. And I see that it's up to us to make it go the way we want it. We can't just say, oh, they're going to give us vaccines next, and you're just going to go walk up and get a vaccine. And already people who are wearing masks should not wear the masks. Now, I know that can be very hard if you're working for a company and you have to wear a mask, but you have to make steps. Whatever have to means. Okay, this is, again, the language is so inadequate, but that's just a rhetorical term. So please don't jump on every word I say, but you're free to. But rather than that, do that too. But rather than that as the priority, get me on the logic of what I say. Okay, get me on the logic so that I can learn too, because the world we're going into is a world based on equality. What does that mean? What does equality mean? We haven't really talked about it. We don't really have a very common definition of it. So we are going into a world now that has never been before. And so looking at history, even though it might have some parts that are good to know and accurate, but it's not really, because so much has not been said that you can't really get an accurate reading of history, because you don't have a side to it that was never mentioned, that was never brought up. So it puts, for example, Thanksgiving, like what everybody learned at school was that Thanksgiving had the Pilgrims. Now, I wasn't brought up here, but so I don't have a very deep knowledge of it, but what a wonderful world they found. And there were turkeys everywhere, and then there were Indians, and the Indians, they would scalp people, and they were bandits, and they threatened to scalp you, and so they had to be killed by the really brave heroes who killed the Indians. But and so we celebrate that every year, and now I find it quite disgusting. So when you find out the truth, everything changes, everything. And the trouble is you have to sit back and you have to watch everybody who doesn't know the truth. And you don't have to do anything. And I'll get to that. But watching it is really painful because you know that they're being scammed. It's like anybody who's telling lies to somebody that you care about, or even somebody that you don't care about. You know, if there's somebody being scammed in your neighborhood, you just, you try to help them out. But if you say anything to these people that they're being scammed, that they're being used as loosh, they they would not know what you're talking about. And they really think that the earth, the world that we make, humans, is really like this, and that this is always going to be like this because we are so intelligent or something. But anyway, we've got that going on the one side, and then on the other side we have people awakening. And so the people who are running things, which are only very few really, I don't know what the numbers would be, but let's say they have to get around in sort of like a base group. It wouldn't be more than 1,000 of them, and that's being generous. But there's 1,000 against billions of people in the world, and so they've also got a network. They don't just work on their own. They're a syndicate, and every country is part of the syndicate because the people who run countries are really quite brainless. If we had lived in a culture that was based on merit, and that doesn't mean we just let people who don't have merit to be in the streets like this crowd does. If we had a culture that's based on merit, we wouldn't have any of this nonsense. But the trouble is they come in where they make us think that we need to be governed. We don't need to be governed. We are the same adults as they are with the same rights and abilities. We don't need somebody to govern our lives. What we need to do is we need to empower the individual. Let me just share my screen here. Empower the individual. That's what we need to do. And how do we do that? Well, we've got to start talking about it. We've got to start talking about how we have got at any time the choice to say no. And if we don't have that choice, anytime we feel we don't have that choice is a time to really stop and take stock of yourself. If you ever feel that you haven't got the ability to say no, that you feel pressured, that you cannot say no, we need to start training ourselves to deal with this. But we need to train ourselves to be dealing with a lot of things. And this is where our mind should go. Some of us have thought about these systems that we could use as alternatives and that are available right now. These alternatives are available right now. And so what we need is to be able to talk to you all, everybody, and start getting our talents in and building a skill pool. And we use another currency, and we start becoming more empowered. We start becoming more individual. We start taking responsibility for our lives, because in the end, that's the funniest thing. I know this is crazy, but for anybody who wants to think about this, we are, and people have mentioned this, but we haven't mentioned it very much. We are the writers of our story, and I think we pretty much attract to us what our emotions feel. You know, we've got to look into this more so that we can figure it out, but properly, because you know, the other people have probably had these feelings too. And if you have, I invite you to speak about it, and or get involved with me and to talk about it, and we can have a back and forth about it. And I think that that would be really fun. So I want to point out that we are on the crux right now, and pretty soon we're going to have to make a decision. Now, it's a decision to wear a mask. It's a decision not to wear a mask. It's a very, very intense decision not to wear a mask. And I don't think people who wear masks understand what we are going through by watching you guys doing this stuff, wearing the mask. It is absolutely horrendous to us that when we see people doing this, and then when we see people en masse, like everybody's doing it, and we're the only ones that are not doing it. It's pretty hard to go through just normal life like this. I feel as though I'm getting accosted almost. I'm not though, but with the eyes, you know. But also it's always with me, because when you see everybody is doing one thing and it's really going against one of the biggest pressures that we have in the world, which is peer pressure. There isn't another pressure that is stronger than that, you know. Not even the pressure that holds in the oceans is stronger than peer pressure and what it does to people. It does the most horrendous things. You've seen the studies, like I can't always remember the name of the guy who did that study, where they were giving the electric shocks to people, to the subjects, and somebody in another room was hearing them through like a radio, and they were hearing their cries, and they're giving them the electric shock. And because the guy in the white coat sitting beside the one meting out the electric power, he told them to raise the power regardless, because this was the experiment, and they would do it even at the all the cries that were coming from the other person, which I think that they weren't real people. They were set up. And yes, of course it must be. And I'm rambling on, aren't I? Because I'm new to this. So I want to bring myself back and remind you that we have got the most incredible immune system, you know, in the world, in the universe, the most incredible one. We have got the most incredible hands. Our hands are like no other creatures. Our brains are like no other creatures. We have such a lot of innate talent for so many things. Now, we can't run as fast as the cheetah, and we can't do some things that other animals can do. But we have much more options than the animals, many more options. We don't even have to eat meat like they do if they're carnivores. We can choose to not eat meat. Now, I'm not saying do or don't, but I think it's better if we only have, I think the best thing to do is to have very little meat, because meat is part of the food chain. And I know we're not part of the food chain. We didn't think we were part of the food chain until we found out about, you know, the syndicates running the world, you know, the ones who are living off our loosh. So maybe we should start having loosh commodities on the stock exchange. I don't know. But we are at a point now where we have to understand it's either being in total control, being totally controlled, and total loss of our bodily autonomy. We have the autonomy of our body. That is the only thing that we own. You know, we don't own our children, but nobody else does either. That's utterly ridiculous how the government works it out, that they think that they own the child, whatever. It's this idea that something else is more authoritative than myself. I am the writer of my story. Nobody can live for me. Nobody can be sick for me. Nobody can feel my pain. Nobody can be born for me. Nobody can die for me. And I can't do that for you. So my story is really it for me. But they have all these characters who have the same capacity. Their story is it for them. Even a small bug, even any bug, even anything, a bacteria even, everything that's alive has its story from its perspective, from wherever it's looking from, its coordinates. And you've got your coordinates. You are an individual. There's nobody else on the planet. We're not, sorry, not on the planet, in the realm like you. You are unique. And we all have quirks, and we all have our own unique quirks as well. And what we've got to do is we've got to work out how we're going to have a society that can integrate our quirks and also negotiate them, and negotiate everything actually, because we're not going to have force. And this society is just around the corner. Just imagine this. I had to write it down because it's so exciting. We have an economy based on hemp and marijuana, and we start reducing fossil fuel use. Now, okay, fossil fuels, I'm just calling it that. I know it's not from fossils, and I know we have to study where it's from. We have to study all these things now, the placebo effect and a whole bunch of other things. And we'll study nature, and we'll work out nature's messages, and we'll live in alignment with nature, and we'll restore nature with a hemp economy instead of a petrochemical economy. Okay, so that's one thing we can look forward to. We're going to need designers for this. We're going to need engineers. We're going to need software people. We're going to need people who can do installations. And we want a beautiful world too. It's going to be beautiful, but we're going to create a society that empowers the individual. This is the most important thing, is that we empower the individual and not empire. Whenever we put our attention to empire, we are actually empowering it, even if it's in a negative way. So they're at a point, we're at a point where, you know, we're going to go one way or the other. It's amazing. It's from one extreme to the other. We're going to be either totally controlled or totally free. And totally free doesn't mean that we're going to just have rampant, you know, abandon everywhere. No, we're going to have, they're not rules, they're principles, they're guidelines, they're guide stones, whatever you want. But they're going to be more flexible than what we've got now. And we're going to be, because we empower the individual, your name will be who you stand in, and that will be your brand, your trademark that you can trade with in the society that we have, based on hemp and marijuana and restoring nature and using clean energies and localized energies. We're going to bring them closer to where we want them. We're going to work out what are the best energies for your area. And we need people to do this. We need ambassadors, you know, for the new world that is just around the corner. So not to hold you up too long, we're going to have an egalitarian community. We go to everything we do, it will be towards egalitarianism. We're going to have a money system that rewards equality, that rewards things that build equality, you know, behaviors that build equality, actions that build equality. We can talk about that in more detail and in discussions. It's going to be a world, it's like a new renaissance, another renaissance where we discussion is what determines things, and we have systems to determine what our true wants are. We need to find out what the people want, and we'll do that through a system of proposal and voting system. which we need to try out in places. So I'm just putting them on the table here. We're going to live in a world where we start restoring our environment and empowering, and sanitizing the world. Like, there's still 50% of India is not sanitized, doesn't have running water. Same with Africa. These people could be growing their own crops, but they have to go and get water, like carry water. And it's always the women that carry the water. And so, speaking about women, I'm really onto the women and male thing, the male-female thing. You'll hear a lot about that because I believe it is the crux of humanity. It's the crux of nature. It's the crux of biology. It's so endemic in everything. It's so incorporated in everything. And we're just ignoring it entirely. And I want to bring it on the table. And it's almost like, whoa, I'm talking about, what religion. It's like talking about that religion, that you're not allowed to say, because if you do, they'll take you down, and because they don't allow anybody to hate them. They'll kill you if they have to, because if you hate them, they'll kill you sometimes. Not all the time, but a lot. Anyway, it's so funny to be saying these things, and I know that I should be frightened that something's going to happen to me, but I don't want to live in a world where you haven't got free speech. So this is my story, right? So I want to live in the world with free speech, and I want everybody to have their free speech, and I want to hear what people have got to say. I actually do want to hear what people have got to say, and I think that this is the kind of world I want. I want a world where we negotiate things through logic, and not just logic though, through compassion, through weighted consideration, and a whole bunch of things that we're going to learn. And I could rave on forever, and I got lengthiness is my forte. So everybody in the world with sanitation and other good things. So we are an amazing species, and we've been hacked. We've been disempowered. We want a world, before I go, I want to show you this. We want a world where children can be wanted and free, and we teach them to be free. By the way, we are free. They see us being free, so they just automatically are free. And we do that with, we've got to start thinking about the barbaric things that we do, like mutilating our children, injecting things into their body and not giving them body autonomy. If we are not giving them body autonomy from the time that they are born, then we are not worth being parents. And I say that in a strong term because it's just not. Look at the trauma that we're putting into this world. We've got to sort of get a hold of it and stop this trauma so that our children won't live in a world like this. They won't come out into a world like this. They'll all be wanted. All the children will be wanted. That should be our aim. And we should nurture mothers and fathers too, and nurture the mothers for the longer period of their pregnancy, and the fathers too, but not the fathers more than the mothers, because that's ridiculous. But do whatever we want. But we've got to understand that I believe we've got to get back the feminine, because we've lost it. So everything is unbalanced. Everything is lopsided. It's not that what we see is not correct. It's just that it's only half correct. There's another side to that. For example, looking at Thanksgiving in the different ways, in the way of the Indigenous people being invaded, and in the way of, oh, there's wonderful Europeans coming here and starting a new land. So we need to do things and think things in order to have what we want, in order to have the good things that we want. We're having an awakening, and we're probably opening up, who knows what, our pineal gland or our DNA, whatever. I believe we have to look inside, and a whole bunch of other things. But the main thing is we need to do this, and that is we need to empower the individual. We need to empower each other. We need to give power to each other and keep our power. We give 50 and 50. We share the energy. We share the energy. And we get involved in the people that we know, the people that we can know, the people we can speak to, the people we can sit and talk to, the people we can call. Not these remote people who we will never be able to speak to, ever. And who don't care about us. We need people to have skin in the game. These are the people that need to decide not decide our lives, but have a say in how we find consensus. None of this business of voting, of people all over the country voting for some person. That's just so inadequate for empowering the individual. So inadequate. We need to make empire small. We really need to make it smaller. Much smaller. Until it's nothing. So, with that in mind, I am trying to stop the sharing. Let me see. Stop share. There we go. With that in mind, I bid you farewell and empower yourself and empower the people around you. And that's the best kind of world that we can do. And step by step, we're going to do this. And it's just around the corner where we can have freedom. For the first time in the human history that we know of, we can have freedom because we've got the technology. It's not the technology that we need now. We don't need more, artillery. We don't need more planes. We don't need more bombers. We don't need more technology right now. We've got plenty of it with what we've got. Let's look at how we're going to be able to enjoy that technology and share it throughout the world and get it back into the cycle of material, the material recycling of it. We've got to figure all this stuff out. And there's a lot of work to be done, but it's good work. It's interesting work. And a lot of it can be done online or at home because we've already proven that. And some things will have to be done on site as we start our villages. But the first thing that has to change is this here. Okay. And until next time, ciao and have a wonderful, wonderful day.